our growth. If we're in the wrong environment, it will not facilitate your growth. It may be a distraction. It may choke out whatever is trying to grow. It may not be the right soil. It may not be the right environment. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Butterfly Essentials by Butterfly Realty. I want to thank you for all your love and your support, for subscribing and for sharing my video and for liking my video. If this is your first time, welcome to the circle. If you're returning, welcome back. Last episode, we talked about transformation, and we talked about the caterpillar going into a butterfly. And so we talked about how it was a certain environment that the egg had to be laid in for that caterpillar to even get started in the process. So today we're going to talk about growth. And some people ask the question, what do I need to grow? Why do I need to grow? When do I need to grow? And those are great questions to ask, but only one person has the answer to that, and that's God. We talked about when I was in nursing and how I got transitioned to real estate. And the environment that I was in was a great environment for the time that I was in it, but it was time for me to go to a different environment. So God told me that it was time for me to transition and to have a transformation into another part of the process of my life. Just like the caterpillar. The caterpillar is fine as long as when he's a caterpillar, but he cannot remain a caterpillar for the rest of his life. He has to transform into a butterfly. That is the process. That is the natural process that God has given for a caterpillar to become a butterfly. In my life, I feel like the natural progression that God had for me was to go from nursing to real estate. That was for me. That's what he had for me. But it's also a plan that he has for you as well. But the only way you're going to find out what that is by getting in relationship with him. So when we ask God for direction, we talked about it being related to a GPS system. And so with the GPS, when we have a destination that we want to get to, this is what we normally do. We put in the address of where we're going, and then the GPS will give us several options. One of those options may be a clear path to get there. One of those options may be showing us what delays are coming up. Another path may be showing us what detours we may have to take, what tolls we have to pay, but it's going to give us different options. So God already knows our destination. So he may give us different options that we can choose from. But when we're choosing on that GPS system which way we want to go, we usually look at the routes and we choose what's best for us. Well, in life, it's kind of the same way. So when God has a destination for us, if we're not in tune with God, we really don't know what path to take. But if we're in tune with God, if we're in relationship with him, in communication with him, he's going to give us our step-by-step instructions on which path we should take. He's going to know if it's traffic ahead. He's going to know if it's delays ahead. He's going to know if there's something that's going to be impeding the traffic, if it's something that we're going to have to pay that's going to cost us more than we're willing to pay, if it's a toll ahead. He knows all of those things. Unlike your GPS system, they're only routing to you in current time what they know. That GPS system doesn't know what's coming up. That GPS system can't tell you, well, in about 30 minutes, it's going to be traffic on I-20 or whatever expressway. So you may want to go this way because traffic will be coming up in 30 minutes. The GPS can't tell you that, but God can. God can tell you, you don't really need to go that route because that route is going to have traffic in about 30 minutes. God knows these things. The GPS system doesn't know that. So when we're talking about growth, we have to be in tune with God in order to know in which direction he wants us to go that's going to bring us growth. What people he wants us to be surrounded with, what places he wants us to be in, the things that he wants us to be doing. All of those things factor into our growth. So being in the right environment will facilitate our growth. If we're in the wrong environment, it will not facilitate your growth. It may be a distraction. It may choke out whatever is trying to grow. It may not be the right soil. It may not be the right fertilizer. It may not be the right environment. Only God knows what environment we need to be in order for us to grow. So we have to look to Him. We have to look to Him. I remember when I was on 285 perimeter, when I was first learning how to drive. And I got on 285 and I went to the left. And so I would just say that day I found out why the 285 perimeter in Georgia is called the perimeter. I found out that day. So I went around the whole perimeter. But let me tell you, y'all, if I would have got on the expressway and went to the right, my exit was 2 exits away. But instead, I got on the expressway and went to the left. So I started around the perimeter and went all the way around the perimeter for something I could have been to in 2 exits. This is sometimes what we do in life because we're not listening, because we don't know which way to go. I was a young driver. I didn't understand the expressway at that time, but where I knew I had to go, this is when we was printing directions. So I'm telling my age, but this is when we was printing directions. So I'm reading the directions. I didn't have a lady talking to me and giving me a GPS, telling me which direction to go. So I'm trying to read, I'm trying to understand where I'm going. And instead of me making that right turn, I made a left turn. So to this day, I know why that is. But sometimes in life, we do the same thing because we don't want to be in tune. We don't want to follow God's direction. We don't want to do what He's telling us to do. When He's telling us to go to the right, and we want to go to the left. And the reason why He doesn't want us to go to the left is because He knows that's the long way around. I can get you there quicker if you just listen to me, if you would just be obedient to me, if you would just follow my directions. I can get you there quicker. But sometimes we have to go the long route around. And I'm going to tell you, when I went the long route around, I know to this day what the perimeter is. I know what it consists of. I know that it's a round circle and it goes continuously. These are things that I know to this day. So sometimes we have to go through the long process to learn some things. But sometimes God has us go the shorter route if that is what He wants us to do, because it may be quicker for us to get to where He's taking us. Because going around the perimeter to the left takes more time. And sometimes we don't have that time to take. Sometimes we need to go to the right and go 2 exits to get to where we need to go, because we don't know who's there depending upon us to show up, to do what God has called us to do. So this is why we got to be in tune to God. And this is why we got to do what He's telling us to do and go in the direction that He's telling us to go. So that's being in the right environment. That's going the right direction, being in tune with God to listen to Him and where He wants us to go. Now, another part of growing is we got to be committed to the process. Now, unlike the caterpillar to the butterfly, that's the process. The caterpillar can't really choose to say, well, I want to go a different process to become a butterfly. Well, in some instances, we can't choose that we want to do a different process to become what God is calling us to do. We have to be fully committed to the process. So I asked you, are you fully committed to the process? Now, we just had the Georgia-Alabama game. So I was strolling through social media and I'm like, okay, well, teams. I see who is with the Georgia Bulldogs and I see who is with the Alabama Roll Tide. It was no question to me. I know who was whose fans. I knew who was supporting who was down for who. I know who was upset when we had our unfortunate of a loss, but I knew it was no question to me. So God is asking the same question. Which team are you on? Who are you a fan of? Is it Him, God, or are you serving Satan? And let me tell you, it's one or the other. You cannot serve two masters. So are you serving God? Are you fully committed to God? Or are you fully committed to the enemy? And if you half and half, you can't be lukewarm. God does not like lukewarm. You're either hot or you're cold. You have to make a decision. And once you make a decision about where you're fully committed, that will determine the decisions that you make with each step that you're taking in life. So if you're fully committed to God, you're going to do the things that's pleasing to Him. You're going to do the things that are going to be answering His call and what's going to be helping you to grow towards His will in your life when you're fully committed to God. If you're half-stepping or you're straddling the fence, then you're not going to do everything that you need to do to be in His will. You're not going to answer each of His calls. You're not going to do what He's calling you to do when He's calling you to do it. If He's telling you it's time to leave this person alone, it's time to leave that person alone. If He's telling you it's time for you to step out and do X, Y, Z, it's time for you to step out and do X, Y, and Z. When He told me it was time for me to step out here and do YouTube, I didn't want to do it, but I knew I had to because I'm fully committed to what God has for me. Now, was I always here? No, this took some time with me getting close to Him, being in His Word, praying to Him, spending time with Him. That's when all of that developed. So there's going to be a time period that you have to go through in order for those things to happen. And then you have to make a decision. Are you fully committed? Just like you have made a decision, Georgia fans, you are fully committed to the Bulldogs no matter what. Just like you've made a decision, Roll Tide fans, you are fully committed to Alabama no matter what. It doesn't matter if they win or lose, you are going to be committed. Well, the thing about God is He's always going to win. The victory belongs to Him. It's in His Word. He's always going to win. So when you're on God's team, you're always going to be a winner. It's written in His Word that Satan does have an end. Satan will lose. So if you're on Satan's team, you're going to lose. So you have to decide. Do you want to be on a winning team or do you want to be on a losing team? Now, the difference between Georgia and Florida, people going to debate that, right? Because some games they're going to win, some games they're going to lose. But you do not have that with God. He's always going to win. So I have to ask you, are you fully committed? What is it that you need to do today in order to be fully committed to God? And I say today because we're coming up at the end of the year, and a lot of people want to make New Year's resolutions, and those are fine. I don't say there's anything against that, but then I have to ask you to ask a question. Why would you procrastinate and wait until next year to put off what God is asking you to do today? How dare you have the audacity to think that God is going to grant you life tomorrow or into the next year to do the things that He has opened up a window for you to do today? You have to be careful of just assuming and just thinking, I have tomorrow. I can do it tomorrow. It's a lot of people who thought they could do it tomorrow. And unfortunately, they're not here with us today. So you have to make a decision today. What is it that you're going to do? Are you going to be fully committed to God's team or not? It's a decision that you have to make today. Now, I'm going to leave you with this. When you're driving down the street and you come to this junction, and sometimes there's a straight lane and there's a lane where it's a right turn only, and you got to make a decision. Now, for some people, going straight, depending upon where your designation is, what designation did you put into your GPS system? So your GPS system says in order for you to get to the designation that you put in, you need to continue straight. And that's fine if that's where your designation is. Now, someone else put in a designation, and their destination is now telling them at this junction, you have to make a right turn in order to get to your designation. God is the same way. There comes a point in your life sometimes where God is saying, it's okay to continue straight. You're on the right path. You're doing what you need to do. And then there's going to come a time when he said, you need to get in the right turn lane only. That's a decision you have to make, because you could decide to continue to go straight. You can. But when you get to the destination that has been set in the GPS system by God, or you can make the decision to make the right turn. Now, if you need to make the right turn, now you got to merge over into a lane. Now you got to make some changes. You got to change lanes. Now, this is what happened to me when I was in nursing. It came to a point where I had to continue. Am I going to keep going straight, or am I going to make this right turn that God is telling me? And this right turn is taking me to my God assigned designation. So nursing was fine until I got to that junction. And when I got to that junction, I had to make a decision. Am I going to keep going straight, or am I going to make the right turn? And let me tell you, y'all, I did. I tried to keep going straight, but God put me at a dead end. So when I say I tried to keep going straight, when I started questioning myself, did I make the right decision? Is this where I need to be? Is this what you told me to do, God? Then I started applying for nursing jobs, and I started putting applications in for nursing jobs. And I've been a nurse for 20 years. No one called me back for an interview, for nothing. They did not call me back for anything. And God spoke to me. He said, I told you that lane is closed. You are going to have to make a right turn, because this is where I'm leading you now. And I had to make a decision. Was I going to keep hitting this dead end, this brick wall? You know, sometimes when you're feeling like your life is falling apart, you need to evaluate. Am I just keep hitting this dead end? Am I just keep hitting this brick wall? Was I supposed to make a turn somewhere? Did I didn't make a turn? Figure out what is keeping you in that place. And the only person that can answer that question for you is God. In this process, things can get a little messy. In this process, things can get a little uncomfortable. In this process, some things can be the way you did not think it would be. But let me assure you, it is all necessary. Just like the caterpillar, it is very necessary for that egg to become the caterpillar, to go into a cocoon, to become the butterfly. If one step is missed in that process, we will not end up with a butterfly. That caterpillar cannot continue to stay a caterpillar. No matter how long the caterpillar wants to, he cannot. He has to go through the process of becoming a butterfly. So we have to ask ourselves, are we willing to go through the process to become who God has called us to be, for us to reach our God-assigned designation? I thank you all for tuning in for this episode. I thank you for getting in the circle. And I want to thank you for tuning in to Butterfly Essentials by Butterfly Realty. Please subscribe. Please comment. Please like. Please share.